Okay, I'm just going to take you through. This is a new playbook that I've built. It's Paul, you'll particularly seen some of this, but not all of it. And what I'll do is I'll share this with you after the call so that you have it and you can work through it. And I should say this is something that I'm moving towards. I'm building playbooks that I can give to my clients of all the key pieces. So starting point is the team talent assessment and building an A-player culture. We've talked about this briefly, Anthony. Paul, you and I have talked about this incessantly, but the key to successfully scaling your business and accelerating scaling is, do you have the right people on the bus, of the right employees? Are they doing the right things? Are they focused on the right things? And how many of them do you need to challenge, train, or redeploy? So I've got a tool which I'll show you in a moment. Paul, it's an updated tool to what you'll see in the past. The talent assessment tool. It's based, as I base a lot of things on top grading to develop this concept of A players and what is an A play. Our goal, or your goal as CEOs, is to have 90% of your team as A players. That's your goal. And no B, C players, toxic A players, no C players. The other 10% are B players, and they're only B players because they're new to the team and they're developing their productivity. The key here is to have a quarterly rhythm. And because if we don't look at this at our team regularly, and the entire team, if we don't look at them regularly and build talent plans, coaching plans, training plans for them, you'll never get to our goal. So in the playbook, and hi, Yuri and Dimitri, thanks for joining us. I'm going to give you a copy of this afterwards as well.
Thank you.
There's some instructions here, but what we're looking for is to identify and classify your entire team into, on the left-hand side, core values, culture fit, and core values most of the time, some of the time, or none of the time. Paul, you would remember we've had some issues over the years with, the culture fit just wasn't there. And along the bottom axis, personal productivity. So KPI, OKR, accomplishment. Once again, below expectation, meets expectation, exceeds expectation. Paul, I used to judge this 0 to 10. It's just too hard. It's too subjective, I find, for people to say someone's a 3 or someone's a 4. So I've changed it to below meets exceeds, which is a much easier way, I think, to classify someone. And the way to do this is literally every quarter with your leadership team, post-it notes, names on it, put them into the different boxes. Really simple. And as you as CEOs, founders, you do the same for your leadership team. So what does it look like? Here. So if someone has a good cultural fit, living the core values of the organization most of the time, and they're exceeding expectation, personal productivity, KPI, OKR, accomplishment, they're A players. If they are that core values, and I emphasize core values and cultural fit because we can train people in productivity in their roles, but we can't, it's very hard to change core values, cultural fit. So if they're most of the time there, but meets expectations only on productivity, they're a B player. Anybody else is a C player. Anybody else is a C player. And then the next thing is team assessment action plan. So I'll show you on the next page, but A players, what are we going to do to keep them? What are we going to do to motivate them? What are we going to do to keep them happy? B players, what will we need to do to move them into A players? And are they capable of that? Toxic C players and C players. Toxic C player is someone, the typical salesperson who will screw over anybody to get the sale and get the commission. What's our short-term plan? And deciding the timing is critical. One of the things we've done in Paul's business over the years, guys, Paul's been a client of mine for probably far too long for football, and I think we've been together for about 8 years now. But one of the things was we decided regularly what's our time frame for moving these people out of the business. And what's the time frame?
Paul, how many staff do you have, Paul? Averages?
At the moment, about 40, I think. So, but they're dotted all over the world. Yeah, not so easy to manage. I suppose one of the main issues I've had, especially with timescales, is employment legislation, let's say. I had someone I had to get out of business in Philippines. It took over 9 months to do so because of the process that you've got to follow not to end up in the courts. Now, Australia's not dissimilar as well. So even though you make this decision, sometimes it takes close to a year to actually fulfill it. And that's running it, with hitting all the time scales to get there, just because employment legislation is just getting worse and worse everywhere. So yeah, it's never quick, I've found, with any of this stuff.
No, we just had one. I just had one where we had a HR advisor, and we actually pushed him into a bit of with his help, the HR advisor, and managed to get them to resign. And even that is even though he was off work, came back, we were told, even now he's saying, the HR advisor said, look, there's still a chance he might come after you, even though he has resigned. Yeah, I know what it's like.
And I think
the guy that took 10 months, he still legally came after us, and I think it was about 18 months of legal with the appeals and that, but basically, because we'd followed that process correctly for 10 months, we won that and moved him out. But it's just a huge risk if you're not doing it as per the lawyers advise you to. Yeah.
This is one of the key reasons that you need to be looking at this quarterly. For a couple of reasons. Number one is that you keep you on top and on tracking new people and their performance and what issues there might be. So we found in Paul's business at different times that we've had people who have gone through literally different performance levels, and divorce, issues with the family. People can come off the boil. And unless we do this, assess quarterly and ask the questions and coach and counsel and train, that's when we get into trouble where someone can come back and say, unfair dismissal. And this is not about necessarily sacking people. It's just that there are certain people who are not. They're not suited to the business. They're not suited to the industry. They're not suited to whatever the situation. We've hired badly. There's a lot in here. So I just want to make the point here though, deciding the timing. At what point are we going to get ourselves to a stage where we've got this target of 90% A players, 10% B players? It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And a C player, by the way, just because they're a C player, they may be in the wrong role. And part of the plan, in conjunction with them, is to working out what we're going to do. Name, title, rating. This is a quarterly thing. Are we going to challenge, train, or redeploy internally, or to leave the country, the company. To give up. Paul's got staff in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 countries now, which sort of makes this a really interesting thing for him to go through. And we want to be tracking this quarterly. We want to track their behavior, because you'll see at times people going through ups and downs. Anthony, you're going to be a cracker in the next 6 weeks because you're in hospital. And our staff go through appendicitis or whatever it might be, pregnancy. Like they're going to be going through cycles and tracking. If suddenly 4 quarters down, we see someone who's been a C player for 4 quarters and nothing's been done about them, we know our leaders are failing.
One thing I would say, Jonathan, that you might want to look at trying to incorporate into this somehow is a dependency part to it. So, for example, we've known that we've had C players, but their behavior was dependent on someone else.
Yeah.
And once we got rid of the problem, they actually developed. So then you put the priority in place as to which one you need to sort first, and then reassess the others after, because that sort of trying to weed out the toxic ones can really affect some of the others.
And Paul, that's why I recommend you start with your leadership team, because in each case with you, the dependencies, they have been either a direct report to you or a direct report to one of your direct reports.
Yeah.
And that led to a bit of, as we talked about, protection of their favorites and all that side of things. So it's really critical that, and when you've got, taking the dependency a step further, when you've got someone, as in the case of that person reporting to you, who knows your business so well and in a different country, it becomes really hard building that.
But it means you've got it's a much longer term plan as to what you do with them. But there's no point severely going after the others until that one's done. But it's then.
And that's why it's got to be really realistic timeframes.
Yeah, and the timeframes are much longer than expected, is what I've found when they're talking.
And the interesting thing here, guys, the person we're talking about was led Paul. In the middle of COVID, Paul decided to move 40 plus staff from Dubai back to the Philippines, where they came from, where they were from, because for the benefit of the staff wanting to be around family and wanting to look after their family. So God help us, we moved 40 plus staff internationally in the middle of COVID. And one of the people we're talking about was the country lead in the Philippines. And really difficult. Paul's in Dubai. I was here, and in fact, I'm a non-executive director of Paul's Australian business. I was here. None of us could travel, and part of what Paul decided to do was actually move an executive out of the Middle East to the Philippines to build that succession plan. But it took 18 months, I think, Paul.
Yeah. To get someone close to, because what you're doing is you're just wrestling certain aspects of the role away from them to someone else, just to limit the chaos that could be caused if you confront it too head on. But I suppose the point I was making is that there was others that were C players in there that turned around after one had dealt with. So you almost need to put those to one side and wait till the end of the process if they're potentially going to be good at what they do.
Yeah. But the point here is the quarterly planning, the quarterly talent assessment, the quarterly action plan meant that over a period of time, Paul was able to make those changes, and it's now a much healthier, much more efficient organization than it was before. So, action plan every quarter. So then the question is, are each of your people in the right seat? Actually, bear with me. I'm going to show you this one. This is a bit out of order. I've got to change. Should you develop or replace B players? So the question is, you've got your A players. The A players, as long as they're challenged, as long as they are given training, as long as you're paying them reasonably, they'll stick with you. The reason they leave is if you tolerate C players and BC players, these toxic people, and tolerate non-performers. So the question is, not all B players are going to turn into A players in the organization. So should you develop or replace B players? This is a series of questions. 7 of them come from Jim Collins. Actually, he's one of my go-to mentors. The 8th one is me. So some basic questions. Are you beginning to lose other staff or clients because you're keeping the person in the seat? Do you have a values problem, a skills problem, or a will problem? Not everybody is capable of doing a particular role. Not everybody wants to work. Do they see what they're doing as a job or a responsibility? So a surgeon, he just to cut someone open, versus I'm responsible for the overall health of the patient. Does the person lay blame or take responsibility? Has your confidence in the person gone up or down in the past year? When someone says, I got it, do you have confidence? If a bus problem or a seat problem, should they be with the company, or are they in the wrong seat? Are they doing the wrong thing? If the person quits, rather than giving them 3 months' notice, would you be relieved or distressed? And finally, does the person create drama? I find when we ask these questions of a CEO, it becomes immediately apparent to them what they should be doing. And notice 6, bus problem or a seat problem. 3 questions. This comes out of EOS, Gino Wickman's work. These 3 questions they've found, I notice I've given you where that came from. These 3 questions, 99% of the time, if any one of them is a no, it's never going to work out. So do they get the job? Do they want the job? And do they have the capacity? And if you're getting those, they're definitely in the wrong seat. Once again, every quarter you should be asking this about every member of your team. Making sense?
Yep.
And then finally, okay, we've decided that we've got the wrong person. They have the wrong values, they can't do the job, they don't fit the business. We've decided it's time to leave them on. And remembering helping them with I'll call it an honourable exit, is a key part of leadership. So what's the process? The first thing is removing chronic and toxic C players. This is the point Paul was making. You may have people in the organisation that are just not performing because they're just soul destroyed by a toxic C player, that salesperson that will screw everybody over. So the first thing is moving them out of the business. And you'll find 99% of the time, if you do that, the whole business will lift. And then the second priority is redeploying the B and C players who are not fit for their present roles. We get a trainable, coach and train them to be productive, or release them to their future career path, and doing that with honour. So how do you do it? This is a series of questions for a coaching conversation. Okay. One of these things is whoever's having this conversation with the person, always have a witness and always have someone who's taking notes. What does it sound like? I'm not going to read through all of this, but I need to be honest with you. I'm not happy with your performance today. Does that come as a surprise to you? And I get the feeling you're not happy with your work here. Is that a fair statement? Yes or no? And then take them down the truth funnel. Now, what would you need to change? What would need to change here to allow you to be 100% happy? What do you believe the chances are of that happening? What do you need to change, do you think, in order to be 100% satisfied with your performance and your contributions? What do you think are the chances of that happening? You can see by asking these structured questions, the person is going to get some serious realization of what's going on. Down to, and if we could do that for you, would it make sense to part company on good terms? And get them to answer. What do you think we should do? What do you think makes sense here? What would you like to do? And it's all about conscientiously taking your B and C and B players through coaching training and looking for a better job fit. If they're a C player, they may just be in the wrong role, and moving them. Paul's taken this to the extreme. One of the team members Benny, who was a team leader and wasn't performing, hadn't performed for a long period of time, reporting to the wrong person. But Benny's just been moved from the Philippines to Gibraltar into an administrative role, and he's happy as Larry in every part of it. But that all came down to a structured program every 3 months, looking at starting the leadership team and working their way down. And it's fascinating. This guy's gone from absolutely a C player to an A player. Fair comment, Paul?
Yeah, we had him in a team leader role where he was managing staff, and that is not for him at all. So making him a senior administrator just to get on with the work, which he's really good at. He's much happier not having that admin. But we had a toxic C player who was desperate to keep him under her control and was trying to talk him out of it. And so this is where the dependency comes in, is everyone could see that this would be much better for him, but it was difficult. So dealing with that other person first was important.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a playbook. I'm going to send it all to you.